Good afternoon, everybody. My name is actually Tendamudzima Mathagu. As has already indicated, I'm going to...
You can just adjust the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Perfectly, thank you.
As has already indicated, I'm going to give an indication of what we're doing as the City of Johannesburg. I think it's important for me to remind everybody that the City of Johannesburg has the city as an environment department, and we have our custodian of public open spaces, which is the city parks, Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo. So I just wanted to clarify that possible confusion. So this is the outline of my presentation. I'll be talking about the context of the invasives in the City of Johannesburg. I won't touch on the impacts because I think we're all here educated in that regard. I'll touch on the invasive species of the City of Johannesburg and what we are doing currently, and obviously the plan that we are developing. We all know the City of Johannesburg, but I must indicate that biodiversity conservation in a metropolitan municipality like the City of Johannesburg is challenging in its totality. That includes also the control and management of invasive species in general. We are all aware that in cities there's a lot of movement, there's horticultural activities, there's development which causes disturbances, and this disturbances actually stimulates the growth of these invasive species, as most of them are mostly pioneers, although we have got big trees as well when we're talking about plants. And there's also a challenge where you find that people have developed, I think Kay touched on this aspect, where people develop attachments to some species that we have to eradicate, like our mallard ducks. We cannot go to some neighborhood and say we are killing them because somebody will stand up and say, no, leave them alone. They deserve to live as well. So those are challenges that we come across. And if you look at our blue gum trees as well, people are attached to them in some areas, so we've got challenges. And apart from those emotional attachments by people, this is something that maybe as a forum we might need to investigate going forward. When you look at urban environments, our indigenous species develop a relationship with some of these invasives. We've got challenges where you have to remove a particular blue gum tree, but you find that maybe there's a grass cow or something utilizing that plant for nesting or something else. So we struggle to strike the balance, more especially where legislation is involved, because the legislation would say remove this particular plant, but already our indigenous species are using them. So that's the discussion that we need to engage in going forward. When you look at this map, what is left in relation to natural areas in the City of Johannesburg is this about 40%, which is the green on the slide. So that's what we are trying to protect as the City of Johannesburg. I won't touch on this slide. We already know the disturbance and all the problems that are caused by invasives. When we initiated our invasive species plan, I won't say the full name because it's a mouthful. When we initiated our invasive plan, we found that we have got about 117 species of interest. But in those 117, some plant species which were not necessarily alien, but were causing bush encroachment were also included in this number. Because bush encroachment is actually a very big problem in the City of Johannesburg. So we found about 101 plant species, 3 mammal species, 9 birds, and then the list goes that, including one reptile. So we use this species, this list for the prioritization of our invasive species plan. So this is just an example of an illustration of how one group, this Eucalyptus species, how it is distributed across the city. So we see that our city is almost covered. Obviously, the level of infestations will differ from place to place, but this is just an indication. So what are we doing currently? As I indicated, we are working in partnership with City Parks. City Parks manages bird sanctuaries, nature reserves. So currently, our focus I must indicate that our focus has been mainly on alien vegetation, because that is the main problem that we have in the city of Johannesburg. So we've been focusing on our bird sanctuaries, our nature reserves, our poppies and ridges, and developed parks. And we're doing a lot of work in our catchment areas as well. Because of limited resources, what we do, we look at areas where we can be able to restore riverine ecological function, and we also have public pressure. We do get complaints from communities from time to time saying that there's encroachment, criminals are hiding, and we need to remove that and redirect some of our resources for those interventions. And we also look at fire risks in areas where some of this alien vegetation might be causing a fire risk. We go and intervene as well. So, as I've indicated, we've initiated a process of developing an invasive species plan. We already have a draft which we're working on, and hopefully some of the stakeholders around here will get an opportunity to engage with it. But for us, the aim of this plan is to get an up-to-date account of what is happening on the ground, to prioritize, as I've already indicated, to prioritize our interventions, and also to get a tactical guide to control and planning efforts, and also a framework for implementation. So we source information from different role players, including SANPI. Unfortunately, this slide is not very visible, but our Agricultural Research Council and all other people who are involved in the field. They assisted us with the information that we needed to form our base information. So we had different approaches for prioritization. We had a workshop where we had different role players from government departments and other institutions, where we said, using their knowledge of the species, we prioritize. But we also used the Gardner framework for prioritization, which talks about tolerance category, active engagements, and also control priority. So, using this category, there are some species which maybe I must indicate that the basis of our prioritization was also informed by legislation. And then we took a step forward and we used these other forms of categorization, where we realized that amongst all those species that we have identified in the city of Johannesburg, some of them have a positive role in the city. As I've already indicated, some of them maybe have been revitalized by our indigenous, they've also been amortized with our indigenous species, and they're not necessarily very harmful to the environment. So those can be tolerated. There are those that will need to be controlled, informed by the legislation, and also the harm that it causes to the environment. So that's how we approach the categorization. And we came to 29 species, which 9 of them were plants. So the guiding principle for management principles are as follows. Obviously, we need to have precautionary approach which talks to emerging invasives. We also have to have integrated control. We also have to drive efficiency because at local government level, we have many other challenges that we deal with. It is difficult to get funding for environmental issues because, as we know, in local government, there are many social issues that we need to deal with. So whatever approach that we use must be as efficient and as possible. There's a critical issue that comes to public promotion of public education and awareness. Also, this has been mentioned somewhere that wherever you clear, you need to find a way of making sure that the environment doesn't get destabilized in terms of rehabilitation. And obviously our plan must be a living document that talks to new developments in the field as well. So we also developed, we looked at the city at large and we saw some what I would refer to as tight ecosystems, and we developed management plans for about 3 or 4 areas that we identified as representing the types of ecosystems that we find within the city of Johannesburg. And we used our Value Sanctuary and the North Cliff Ridge and Manimutla Adventure Center. So these management plans actually give us an indication and we can sort of superimpose them in other areas within the city of Johannesburg. And I think that's where I will, okay, in conclusion, we need to acknowledge that there are many players in the field. I mean, I've seen my friends of Klofendal. There are many other role players that we need to engage with. We cannot do it alone as government. That's why I'm also indicating that before we submit this to national, we'll have engagements with other stakeholders as well. I've already indicated that there are many competing demands, so we need to see how we partner with other role players in order to maximize the benefits we can get from all available resources. Another critical issue in the city of Johannesburg is that although we have got, the city might have what, according to the standard of our metro, is a vast tract of lands. Some of these properties might be adjacent to city-owned properties, but they are privately owned. So there must be a partnership between private landowners and the city, because it doesn't serve any purpose when we're busy controlling in city-owned properties while nothing is happening in other properties, in adjacent properties. I think that's where I'll end, and I'll wait for, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that update is very important for those people who want to know, is the city on track with their management plan? Where we can see something is happening. Things are moving forward. Any questions? Any comments? Any suggestions? At the back.
Just one question, comment.
Can you please tell us who you are, sir?
Sorry, my name's Paul. I'm from Carlswold in Midrand. Just one or two questions, kind of comments. City of Joburg dispatched people into the riverbank area to clear out the invasives. Contractor appointed decided to take out all the sweet corn and all the hardwood trees as well, which was blatantly just for the fire department. Instead of that, much of a problem in the distance because they were relatively quite effective with parasite, and we have our fire setters that are cutting them down faster than you can.
Do you have a comment on that, sir?
Yes, I can comment. I think it's a very good input, and those are things that we looked at when we did our privatization. There's an issue that is touched on in relation to removal of space that are not supposed to be removed. That's something that we need to look at when we need to educate our contractors going forward. It's not the first issue that we are hearing in that regard. And I think there's a problem because what we do, you know, the problem is that in local government, there's also the issue of creating jobs where you get members of communities adjacent to the area where you're working. They get employed, and maybe we're not providing them with enough training. But another thing another issue that he is raising is the issue that I touched on in relation to legislation and the urban environment. What applies in some pristine areas in the Northern Cape, for example, in terms of legislation, might not necessarily apply or work properly in the urban setting like ours. We are always raising an issue that, as I've indicated, about 60% of the city of Johannesburg has been transformed. And there's an argument that in obtaining eco goods and services, they do not necessarily only come from the natural vegetation. So there might be some areas where transformation has taken place in such a way that the natural vegetation might not be able to re-establish itself. What do we do for the people who are staying in those areas to obtain goods and services which we get from vegetation? So those are engagements that we need to talk to. In terms of the pom-pom, I've already indicated that from our prioritization is actually very high, because we know the impact that is doing to our residents. So thank you for that input. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Anything else from Mr. Mathagu? One up there.
Good afternoon. I'm Rosalie Smith from the Centre for Biological Control. Thank you for your presentation. I was just a comment. So I was just a little bit disappointed to rather hear about plans and instead perhaps things that has already been done and some progress, and specifically what species you have been working on. But yeah, thank you so much.
Good.
Apologies, the brief that I got for the presentation was for us to come and talk more about the plan that we are developing and how we are approaching it. But as I've already indicated, on an annual basis, we have got a budget that we appoint city parks to implement our alien vegetation control. But the frustration that we have is that the way we work in government, we have got limited resources. And unfortunately, with alien vegetation control, you cannot go and clear in Castlewell this financial year. Next financial year, you go to the next year. We must be able to have resources to do follow-ups to make sure that whatever intervention we are putting are actually productive. But unfortunately, what we have been doing on an annual basis is actually to go to new areas. And I think I must look at this program, because there are areas that I drive past. In North Cape, for example, it was cleared about 2 years ago, but now we're working close. And unfortunately, people are staying in Castlewell. If they see us only working on North Cliff, it's like they're being ignored. So the legal resources must be spread across, which doesn't actually talk to the effective utilization of limited resources. But obviously, I mean, those are engagements that we can accept any contribution and suggestions in that regard. Thank you. But we have got a challenge that, for example, in the current financial year, we have got maybe 1.5 million. What does it do across the city? So So the resources are actually a constraint, but maybe we can also plan better going forward, and ideas can assist us as well. Thank you. Ideas and resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mathagu. There we go. Sorted.
Is that all?
That's it. There we go.
Thank you.